What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
The wheels spin, the rubber rubs. Let me briefly remind you what a gearbox is and what it is used for. The classic definition of a gearbox is a mechanical conversion device designed to transmit torque with a change in direction, speed, and tractive force depending on the required value. When we talk about a rear-wheel drive car, most often remember about the rear axle reducer. Of course, its essence is the same, to transform torque from the cardan into rotation of the driving wheels, that is, to change its direction, speed and tractive force, all according to the classics. However, there is one important device in its composition, differential. From the point of view of hardware, it is a set of gears in the form of a special case of planetary gear, but its function is very important. If to simplify a little, the task of the differential is to divide one stream of power from the cardan into two streams to each of the wheels, providing the possibility of transferring from 0 to 100% of torque depending on the road situation. This is done for one purpose, to make the car more controllable in corners. If there were no differential, both rear drive wheels would always spin at the same speed. And in a corner, the outer wheel makes a larger radius arc than the inner wheel. The differential gives the wheels the ability to turn at different speeds, which means that the slippage of the less loaded wheel in a corner is eliminated. I'm sure I haven't said anything new here, but it's never a bad idea to repeat some things. If only because I would like to point out once again that to ensure proper operation of the gearbox, it requires high precision of its manufacturing and the use of appropriate materials for the manufacture of numerous gears and axles. Otherwise, the gearbox will work poorly, with jerks and hum, and not for long. Seems obvious, but unfortunately some spare parts manufacturers don't want to think about it. Let's get acquainted with them. Tornado, aggregate, Mostat. We have taken 3 different gearboxes from different manufacturers. They have only one thing in common: all of them are considered by their manufacturers to be analogues of gas gearboxes. A small spoiler: alas, we cannot call them analogues. The first reducer is made by the company Tornado. The article is 3302-2402010. It is the same on Gazelle, 8x41 teeth. The cost in different stores fluctuates decently. On average for it will have to give about 22,500 rubles, although you can find and much cheaper, from 16,000. Another gearbox with the same article belongs to the company Aggregate, and its average cost is approximately the same. In general, we cannot say that these parts are cheaper than the original gas gearbox. You will have to pay from 16,800 rubles for it, so the benefit of buying it is doubtful. Another tested gearbox of the same company has the article number 3309-2402010. And, finally, the last, 4th gearbox, which went to the laboratory of the United Engineering Center LLC, is produced by Mostat. The article number is 2217-2402010. Here is an interesting detail: many online stores say directly that this is a restored original GAZ gearbox. It costs a little cheaper than the original, but how original it is, we will see a little below. And so, as with the samples for the examination of cylinder heads, we did not save money and did not look for obviously cheap analogues, from which it would be too naive to expect good results. All these gearboxes are comparable in price to the original ones, which is very important for the objectivity of the study. We wanted what was best. So, let's begin. The first disassembled gearbox is 3309-2402010 from Aggregate. This is probably one of the strangest gearboxes. Not only is it not quite the same as the original, but it's also not new. Let's start with the fact that the differential bearing caps and the mounting of the drive pinion flange are not the same as on the GAZ gearbox. That is, it is impossible to call this gearbox an exact analog. But this is not the worst thing. It is much worse that this gearbox is assembled from second-hand parts. For example, there are used pinions of the main pair and some parts of the differential produced by the Gorky automobile plant. But what is even more interesting is that some of the bearings are also second-hand. No of main gear side clearance, preload of differential bearings, run out of the idler pinion head, sound pressure level, dBs. 25-46-0, 15-0, 25-0, 42-0, 40-0, 27-98, knock 93, 5x CD0, 20-0, 35-0, 25-0, 16-87-87. The quality of assembly is not all good either. The GAZ design documentation describes all adjustment parameters in detail, but no one in aggregate has probably read the CD. And that is why neither side clearance fluctuation, nor the moment of resistance to rotation of differential bearings, nor the contact spot are included in these parameters. So there is no reason to be surprised that this gearbox will start making noise immediately after installation on the car. The cherry on the cake is a noticeable wear under the working edge of the collar on the flange of the drive pinion. In general, we can safely say that the gearbox, parts of which were used in the manufacture of this aggregate, has seen something in life. And its quality does not stretch not only to a new part, but even to a qualitatively restored old one. No ENMA condition of parts main gear pinions GAZ PJSC production gears, issue 2011, have wear on the working surface of the teeth, more pronounced on the front stroke. The sound pressure level, PX, 84.5 dBc, SX, 81 dBc, according to CDPX, 81 dBc, SX, 81 dBc. Bearings differential and drive pinion have wear of working surfaces and traces of corrosion. Differential parts, all parts have wear on the working surfaces and signs of corrosion. Drive pinion flange on the working surface, under the collar, groove width of about 2 mm, depth of about 0.5 mm. Production is not PJSC GAZ. What to expect from this gearbox? Increased noisiness of operation due to broken gearing is half a problem. Worse, this gearbox will bleed oil through the cuff and will lose gear teeth rather quickly due to violation of contact spots at incorrect assembly and adjustment. That's going to be a shame for someone. Almost all the same faults are present in the second Agregatovskago gearbox with the Article 3302-2402010. Some details differ. For example, in this reducer GAZ belong not only gears, but also details of the housing and axles of the differential satellite. Of course, all of them are second-hand and with traces of wear. The same negligent attitude to assembly and adjustment, incorrect contact patch and resistance to rotation of differential bearings. And in addition, violated the tightening torque of fasteners. The conclusion will be almost the same as in the case with the previous unit. This rather noisy product will quickly go to scrap because of premature wear. However, it will probably not suffer from oil leaks immediately. Unlike the previous gearbox, there is no such wear on the drive pinion flange. Now let's move on to Tornado products. This gearbox with the Article 3302-2402010 was able to surprise in its own way. Of course, in the best traditions of counterfeiting, it has serious deviations from the design documentation of the factory. For example, there is no anti-seize coating on the axle of the differential satellites. In the box of satellites did not make oil windows, the cuff of the drive pinion is different. Well, the history does not tell where some of the bearings were taken from. There are no markings on them. Apparently, they put whatever they found cheaper. The creators of this gearbox did everything to make it suffer from oil starvation of differential and finally died in agony from welding of satellites on axles. And if you add a leaking cuff and noisy gears, then life with such a gearbox will not seem paradise. However, it will not last long anyway. Assembly parameters: side clearance, preload of differential bearings, bearing plane run out of the driven pinion, location of the contact spot 10, 22-0, 20-0, 22-0, 15-0, 07 OK 20, 07-0, 05-0, 060, 32-0, 12 NOK3 Norwegian krone 0, 16-0, 17-0, 15-0, 28-0, 10 knock 0, 15. 0, 17-0, 09-0, 18-0, 08 countersample. And finally, the fourth product is a 2217-2402010 gearbox from the supplier Mostat. As I have already said, this company does not hide the fact that the gearbox is not new, but reconditioned. Not all stores inform about it, but it is already questions to them, not to the supplier. The questions to the supplier are quite different. In order not to write the same thing twice and thrice, I will say briefly, everything that was in the aggregate gearboxes is here. Second-hand gas gears, housing parts, satellite axles. All of this is with traces of wear. Similarly, during assembly and adjustment did not comply with the requirements of the design documentation on the moment of resistance. To rotation of the differential bearings and the spot of contact on the torque of tightening the gearbox fasteners. In general, a typical set for counterfeit. But here they went a little further and put old differential parts with traces of corrosion. And lastly, for some reason they replaced the deformable bushing with a rigid tube. The set of consequences of such an approach to manufacturing of the unit is standard, very noisy operation, and most importantly, loss of preload of bearings and their destruction. And together with the teeth of the gears because of the violation of their meshing. To take or not to take? I will be brief, there is no question of to take or not to take. We all expect from new parts the resource of the ones that came from the factory. Surely many of us remember how in the 90s we were looking for at least something decent in quality from parts for our VAZs and gazes. But all these cooperative handicrafts of that time after time disappointed, forcing us to study the assortment of all local parts stores and the use of indefinite maternal articles. The 90s passed, but the Palionka remained. And in the era of digitalization, when a huge number of spare parts we buy without looking at all, via the internet, counterfeit manufacturers thrive especially lushly. It's sad, but it's a fact. Part Gearbox number 123 main gear pinions manufactured not at PJSC GAZ, the idler has laser marking on the end face, manufacturer. Modification manufactured at GAZ PJSC, 1999, old technology manufactured not at PJSC GAZ, the idler has laser marking on the end face, manufacturer, modification differential gears manufactured not at GAZ PJSC, no visible wear traces manufactured at GAZ PJSC. Shows signs of wear, corrosion manufactured at GAZ PJSC, shows signs of wear, corrosion spacer bushing not manufactured at GAZ PJSC. Design with spacer ring. A piece of pipe is used instead of a spacer bushing drive pinion flange manufactured not in GAZ PJSC, design. As for Simrit collar, manufactured not in GAZ PJSC manufactured not in GAZ PJSC, has a coating similar to P29 on the working surface. Including, satellite axles not coated with chemistry. FIS. Manufactured at GAZ PJSC, shows signs of wear, corrosion manufactured at GAZ PJSC, shows signs of wear and corrosion. Bearings. All bearings have model marking, manufacturer's marking is absent. All bearings are new, production of EPK. All bearings are new, production of SKF, Ukraine. Differential satellite box casting of old design, without oil windows. Casting of old design, without oil windows. Both boxes have traces of wear. Casting of old design, without oil windows. Both boxes have signs of wear, corrosion. Drive pinion collar not used during assembly at PJSC GAZ, without anther, brown color. Not used during assembly at PJSC GAZ, black color, production year 2006. Not used during assembly at PJSC GAZ, black color, production year 2020. Gearbox crankcase brown color, 2013, no GAZ logo uncoded, 2005, produced by PJSC GAZ uncoded, 2005, produced by PJSC GAZ. The conclusion from this story is 1. If you want to save money, it is better to buy most parts only with original ones and only in trusted places. And analogues of unknown origin, unknown how restored old parts, it is money in the wind and a lot of money. It is not the most interesting thing to buy for them and unnecessary visits to car service centers, and it is better to do without it. In conclusion, the exploration of gearbox manufacturers reveals a complex landscape where innovation meets reliability. While some companies have established a reputation for producing durable gearboxes, others have faced challenges that lead to issues like humming noises and premature failures. Understanding the history and performance of these manufacturers can help consumers make informed choices. As we move forward, it is essential to prioritize quality and craftsmanship in gearbox production to ensure longevity and efficiency in our machinery. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the past, and we hope you gained valuable insights into the world of gearboxes.